All right. So here we go. Another episode of Q&A is underway. All right, so let's go. With all of the stuff that you now know about fitness, what would you tell your younger self who started day one at the gym again? Oh, that's a really, really good question. With all the stuff you know about fitness, what would you tell yourself if you were starting day one at the gym again? The honest answer to that would be that I would tell myself that if you think that you're going to change your body just by going into the gym and lifting hard and heavy, it just won't happen. The thing that most people forget about is the nutrition component. It's the easiest part to it, but it's also the piece that most of us mess up, right? What we tend to do is we tend to think, oh, you know what? I did a really hard gym session. I worked really hard. I did a lot of exercise. And then we get like 2-3 months into our program and nothing's changed. And we're just like, why don't I look any different? You can train really, really, really hard. But the reality is, if you want to see some changes, particularly in lowering your body fat, you have to get on top of your nutrition. Now, that doesn't need to be difficult. It doesn't need to be difficult. In fact, the simpler, the better. If you have no idea how to track calories or anything like that, the simplest thing that you could possibly do, I'm just going to give you two things, right? Two really helpful pieces. You probably heard them before, but still we continue to disobey them, right? And that is, you've got to stop drinking your calories. Number one, you've got to stop drinking your calories because liquid calories, they go in, they go out, they don't fill you up. They give you all the calories, but without any satiety. So that's the problem. The second thing is the easiest way to lose weight without it feeling like a diet is to start eating more whole natural foods. So what are whole natural foods? These are foods that include fruits, vegetables, meat, fish, chicken, eggs, low-fat dairy, and some unprocessed carbohydrates. That's it. If your diet is surrounding those foods that your grandma would recognize, oh yeah, I know what that is, you will lose weight and it will come off at a decent pace. The thing that keeps most of us overweight, I'm going to tell you, is these two things. Number one, just like me, I sit at a desk all day. Despite being an online coach, I sit at a desk all day. I've got a sedentary job. That is the number one thing. Number two is that we just eat too much from packets. And when you're eating too much from packets and you're sitting down all day, you're getting no calories burned and lots of calories coming in. And that is why the majority of the world is overweight. So you just got to flip up that script, okay? But if I was to go back and tell myself the first thing about gym, it's that I would focus on nutrition first and foremost. Now, if you are watching this live and you want to ask any questions, please pop them in the comments, just like beautiful Jennifer Brewer has. Hey, Jen, good morning. Hi, this might have been asked before, but is there a reason to not wear shoes during a lifting session? I've seen some wear and some wear not. Just curious if it's better to wear or if it's not. Really good question. I'm glad you asked that, Jen. So the simple answer to it is it depends what type of shoes you're wearing and the type of training that you're doing. Here's the big thing, right? If you have these, okay, so if you're going to go for a run or for a walk or do some cardio, you generally want to have spongier shoes, right? The reason you want spongier shoes, bigger heels, is because the force that's coming down on your foot, you want the sponginess of your shoe to absorb that force. That's the complete opposite of what you want in a gym. In a gym, you don't want sponginess. Why? Because you want ground contact. So when you're pushing off a leg press or you're pushing off a squat or you're doing a deadlift, you want as much of your feet to be in contact with the ground as possible. So if you have this big ass spongy set of shoes, well, it's not really a problem for doing things like upper body movements, but it's not going to do well for you when you're doing leg-based movements, okay? Hopefully that answers the question, Jen. So the next part to your question is like, well, should I go barefoot or not? what I do personally, I like training barefoot. It's just a pain in the bum to have to take your shoes on and off. I love training in really flat-soled shoes. If you look at any of the videos that I put into the client group, Jen, I'm always wearing the Converse Chucks, right? The flat shoes. That's what you want. So what's the takeaway from anyone watching this? If your shoes look like you're about to go for a jog, that's probably not what you want to wear when you're doing lower body exercises. Jen says, makes perfect sense. Thanks so much. Good question, Jen, and I'm glad you asked it. And if you guys have any other questions you want to ask, please pop them into the comments. Good morning, Jimmy, and to all of the ladies that have joined this one in our client group. Okay, is there any way we can put together some do's and don'ts to help build my gym confidence? Yeah, actually, we've already done it. So if you are in our client group, here is what I want you to do. If you feel like you're a bit nervous in the gym because you're just not confident, you're just not really sure the best way to go about it. A couple of years ago, I put together almost like an onboarding training for the gym. So here is where you find it. You go into the guides section of our Facebook group. You can also find it in the BBA app. Go to the guide section, go to base workshops, and it's the very last workshop. It's an hour-long workshop where I take you through everything you need to know to lift confidently in the gym, including all the lingo that a lot of people don't understand. Now, if you're watching this one live, guys, and you want to ask any questions, that's what I can do. Okay, can I have protein powder during my fasting period? Great question. Look, a lot of people think that there is something superbly magical about fasting. I personally don't think there's too much magical about it, but I do think it is a very effective tool. Okay, so I don't think it's magic, but I think it's an effective tool. Here is the reason why. If you use fasting properly and you simply don't have food, all you're using it for is a calorie control technique, and you like doing that, so it means you can have a little bit more food at your main meals, then it is effective. But I wouldn't be worrying about but what happens if I have coffee? Or what happens if I have protein powder? Or what if I have this? What if I break my fast? Nothing is going to happen if you break your fast. It's not as if you can fail that. There's nothing that's going to happen if you break your fast. You're just having calories within your fast. So the answer to the question, can I have protein powder during my fasting period, is yes, you can. And in terms of your total calories, you just need to account for the scoop of protein powder, which is going to be about 120 to 125 calories. So as long as you're factoring that in, it doesn't mean that because you had it during your fasting period that it doesn't work or that it's a problem. It just means that you're not actually fasting, which isn't the biggest deal. But if you're saying, you know what, I'm not going to eat any food during this period, I'm going to actually just have a scoop of protein powder and that's all I need till lunch. Well, that basically means for your breakfast, you've had 120 kilos and 30 grams of protein. Simple, right? If I don't want to fast, can I actually get results without it? Absolutely, you can. Remember, the principle that we need to understand about fasting and why it can be helpful is calorie control. So you can exercise calorie control in a number of ways. At the top of the Q&A, we said, stop drinking liquid calories. That's one way to do it. Stop eating so much processed foods. That's another way to do it. Fasting is another calorie control tool. Do you have to do it? No. If you could control your calories over the course of a day through willpower, through not drinking liquid calories, through smarter choices, there are quite a few ways. Removing the hidden calories, looking at the way you actually cook food. There are plenty of ways to control your calories that don't involve fasting. So yes, the short answer is you can lose weight without fasting. Okay, why do I not sweat when I am working out? Am I not working out hard enough? Okay, this is a very, very common question. If you've ever asked the question, why am I not sweating during my workouts? just going to tell you guys honestly, I very rarely sweat during my workouts. Sweating happens when you're hot. If your gym's air conditioned and you're doing resistance training, you're probably not going to sweat. It's not a mark of whether you've had a good workout or not, whether you're sweating or not. Just because you have sweated, that doesn't mean you had a good workout. It just means you're hot. Okay? So what should you be looking for during your workouts? Soreness? No, that's not what we should be chasing. What we really should be chasing is, I think the best thing you can think about is, have I connected my mind to the muscle while I'm working out? In other words, when I'm doing a bicep curl and I squeeze it, can I actually feel it? Am I pushing that as hard as I can possibly push, regardless of the amount of reps I do, regardless of the amount of weight I do? Am I getting to the point where I'm contracting the muscle as hard as I possibly can and then putting it down? If you're getting to that point, this is called progressive overload. When you're getting to the point of near can't do any more of that weight, and gradually you get stronger week on week, or you can do more repetitions for the same thing week on week, that is what is determining a good workout or not. Emilio says, I believe as long as you increase your heart rate, not sweating. Well, again, Emilio, it depends what you're trying to do. I would never look to an increase in my heart rate as an indication of a good resistance training session, as a good gym session. My heart rate might increase, but that doesn't mean I had a good workout. My heart rate might increase in the gym because I'm not that fit. Or my heart rate could increase in the gym because I'm doing a compound movement versus a bicep only movement, as an example. So your increase to your heart rate is really not that important from a perspective of telling you whether you've had a good gym session. So what's not important? Soreness, sweating, temperature, heart rate, none of those things are important in a gym session. What's important is that you are pushing as close as you can at a given weight to not being able to do any more. That's what's most important. Pascal says, listening in while at the gym. Hopefully you're pushing those sets to the end. Hey guys, look at everyone joining in our client group. I hope you're having a beautiful start to this morning. Guys, if you have any questions either here or here, more than happy for you to drop those questions in the comments and I will answer them. Does pain in my lower back necessarily mean I've done something wrong? Okay, good question. The short answer is, again, no, it doesn't. It depends if it's a really acute pain or it's just tension. So for example, let's say that you're doing a bent over row where you are, for example, bending forward from the hips and you've got a little bit of a tension in your lower back and you're rowing a barbell, okay? It's not going to be pain necessarily, but you're definitely going to feel tension because you've got your body in that fixed position, right? It's not pain, it's tension, it's contraction. That is not a bad thing. Now, if you do twinge your back or something like that, my suggestion would be, don't try to push through the pain. Instead, just stop, okay? Maybe finish off your session there rather than trying to push through the pain. If you twinge something like a hammy or a bicep or whatever it is, you don't want to keep pushing through that. But did you do something wrong? You could have. Maybe you compromised your form. Maybe you lifted a little bit too heavy. But for the most part, look, if you're pushing hard, sometimes injuries are just par of the course. It sucks a little bit. We've all done it. The best thing you kind of got to think about is the number one cause of injury, if you're wondering, is tiredness. So not sleeping. We go into the gym, we push ourselves, we're a little bit tired, we're not concentrating, and then we just let our form slacken a little bit. Everyone has done that, right? And then we end up injuring ourselves. So prioritizing your sleep is probably the best way to avoid injuring yourself. Again, guys, any questions, bang them in the comments. We've got a few more here. Does lifting weights affect my height potential? I have never had that question ever in my life, and I would think the short answer to that is no. Does it matter if I only train on weekdays and have the weekend off? No, it doesn't matter. What matters is that, are you getting enough of a break in between sessions to fully recover? This is where there's a little bit of an overlap between the intensity that you're working at in the gym and how many days you train. I think the best split for most busy mums and dads like you guys, the best split is a 3-day full body program. I really do think that for most people, that's the best split. Now, that would look like perhaps Monday, Wednesday, Friday, full body. I think that's the best split for most busy parents. Why? Because you're giving yourself a day off in between to recover fully. So even if you create a little bit of soreness, a little bit of overreach, you get a day off in between. It allows you time to focus on your steps and focus on your nutrition without getting overwhelmed. And we're talking 45 to 60-minute sessions. That is plenty. That's plenty of stimulus for most people. I think most people think that, you need to be in the gym for like 5 or 6 days a week. You just really do not need that. At our age, we actually need that recovery. And if we're not getting the recovery, sometimes that 4th and 5th and 6th session can actually be more damage than it's actually worth. More damage than it's worth. Good morning, everyone who's just joined the Q&A in our clients group. We're getting close to the end of our questions here, guys. So if you have any questions, you can pop them in the comments. I'll answer them. Will my macros change during the course of my transformation? Yeah, good question. Okay, so for those of you that don't know what a macro is, it's a fitness industry term, so let's simplify it. A macro is a thing that provides calories, a piece of food that provides calories. Fat, carbohydrate, and protein are all macros, and that's short for the word macronutrients, big nutrients that provide calories. Now, if you take all the carbs you eat, all the fat you eat, and all the protein you eat, and you sum up the calories of those foods, that will tell you how many calories you had for the day. Okay? So, our preference and my preference is that when you start a transformation, one of the first things you will do by getting rid of the liquid calories and starting to eat more whole natural foods, one of the ways that the cookie crumbles, so to speak, will be that your carbs and your fats will come down and your protein will go up. Okay? Much higher than the amount of protein that you would have ever eaten in your life, because you're centralizing your weight loss strategy around a high protein diet so that you stay full. You don't want to be losing muscle. You want to be losing body fat, right? That's why we've got to keep our protein intake high. Now, there's a minimum amount of fat you generally want to eat in a day. And I think that amount is around 50 grams for both sexes. You want to be sitting at around 50 grams of fat. So if you're hitting your protein target and you're having about 50 grams of fat a day, whatever your calorie intake, it's going to be made up by the carbs. So if you're on a lower level of calories, that pretty much means you're probably doing a lot less activity. You're in a dieting phase. Your carbs are going to be a bit lower. If you are reverse dieting, trying to build some muscle, you're bringing your calories up. Your carbs are going to be a little bit higher. So for me personally, I recommend that protein and fat stays pretty consistent during the course of a transformation. And then your carbs are what make the difference in your total calories. They come up or they come down based on the energy demands and what your goals are at that time. So, will your macros change during the program? If you're in Better Body Academy and you're in a dieting phase, your carbohydrates should be coming down. If you are in a reverse dieting phase, your carbohydrates should be coming up. That's the way you want to think about it. Hopefully, that's kept as simple as possible. Look at all of the guys listening in from the gym. Hey, Pascal. Hey, Glenn. Lovely having your company here, guys. All right, we've got Kate saying, thoughts on jumping on the treadmill after a training session to get some steps in. Kate, I think that is absolutely a good idea. So here's the thing, right? And particularly for someone who's starting to get quite athletic like you don't want, Kate, your calories to come down super low. Why? Well, because the lower your calories are getting, the more exhausted you're going to get. And your body does these tricky things where you don't notice it, but what will happen is as you're cutting calories a little bit low, it'll start to slow everything down. Maybe slow your metabolism down, slow your steps down, slow your overall activity down. It does this to try to conserve energy, right? So if instead of creating a deficit through massive calorie cuts, you create a new deficit, particularly when you start to hit a bit of a plateau in your weight loss, Kate, you create a new deficit through doing a little bit of extra cardio. Now, I'm not talking about getting on a treadmill and sprinting as hard as you can and risking injury, but if you like the idea of getting on a I don't know, a bike, a treadmill, incline or flat. It can be what do you call these ones? I can't remember the names escaping me. Listening on your walk, as Tammy's saying. I think that's a really, really good way to do it, Kate. I wouldn't like to be completely dependent on cardio for fat loss, but I think that as you get deeper into sort of calories, and if the calories are coming down below 1600 sort of mark for women, then I would prefer to see a little bit of an increase in your activity as the throttle for creating a calorie deficit. And the reason is, realistically, Kate, is that eventually you just get really hungry. And if you're depriving yourself, this is the big thing that most people don't understand. However you lose the weight, you've generally got to keep doing that to keep it off. Right? So if you've got to drop to 1200 calories to lose the weight, that is going to eventually become your new maintenance calories because you've driven everything down. So what you want to try to do is, I think, 3 days a week. Let's say you're training, let's say, here is probably the perfect situation, Kate. If you have the ability to do this, keeping your steps up at a minimum level every single day. But then on the 3 days a week, remember I said a 3-day a week training plan. On the 3 days a week that you are training, if you spent 15 to 20 minutes doing some treadmill, either incline or flat, and you did it at a decent pace, I think that's a really, really good way to burn an extra, say, 200 calories, which helps with creating that little bit of a deficit rather than pulling your calories down further in terms of intake. Does that make sense? And good morning, Tam and Kara. I hope you guys are good. That's the way that I would play it, Kate. And certainly in a cut, I think that's a really, really good and effective way to do it. So top up the cardio a little bit, then we go from there. And Pascal says, thanks for explaining macros, Jace. That was really helpful in insight, in understanding. Yeah. So over the course of our transformation, Pascal, what will happen is, we want our protein probably up around that 200 grams. We want our fat locked in at about 50 grams. So think of it almost like if our total calories are coming down, but we're not going to change our protein and we're not going to change our fat, then we've got to move the carbohydrates. The carbohydrates become the up and down throttle, which is good. This is a good thing because the more work you're doing, the more exercise you're doing, you want to play with your carbohydrates because that's what's going to help give you the energy to continue those workouts, right? Does that make sense? So when you are at a higher level of calories, so you're packing out the top end of not a bulk, but a reverse diet, a nice lean gains period, once you've sort of done that for a period, then you're filling up your calories with carbs. They're also naturally the first thing that you would cut down on. A lot of people like to have a higher amount of fat. Me personally, I don't feel as good. I'd much prefer to be having some potatoes and some rice and fruit and vegetables rather than pouring olive oil on my salads. And for me, that's just a waste of calories. Perfect, says Kate. No problems, Kate. Always here for you, buddy. Madalena says, is the body burning more during cardio after resistance training? Is the body burning more calories during cardio after resistance training? It's a good question, Mads. The short answer is, I would say not by a large amount. However, there is some evidence that suggests that there is something called post-exercise oxygen consumption. It just basically means that after you've done a resistance training or HIIT workout, that your metabolism and the calories you burn stay elevated for a longer period of time. And that being suggestive as one of the ways that it's actually good to prioritize resistance training. Now, if you then paired that with cardio, would you burn more calories? Above and beyond what you burn in the session itself, Mads, I would say probably a marginal amount, but it's not really something that I would think about too much, particularly if, here's what a lot of people will do, Mads, they will do a really, really hard workout, and then they'll say, wow, I worked out so hard and now I'm sweating and now I'm going to go have a big meal. The problem is you can eat back the calories that you just burned in 0 time. This is really why you don't want to overdo the cardio. And I know that for a lot of women, it's kind of like this, like it's ingrained in us. It's like, we've got to get to these doing more and more and more and more and more cardio. But the reality is, the more that you do, the more your body gets adapted to that level of work, and you got to keep doing it. I always, come back, Mads, to, what do I personally do? I want to change my aesthetic. I want to look a certain way. You build that frame, you build the base in the gym. 3 to 4 good, solid workouts a week where you don't care how many calories you burn. Like you don't even look at the I never, ever, ever, I couldn't tell you what my watch says in terms of calories. The only thing I track is the steps, right? I don't look at calories burned. It's a gross overestimation. It's a stupid figure. It's useless. It's inaccurate. I don't even worry about it. What I care about is, did I go into the gym today and push myself? And in terms of a metric, what should I be looking most at? Am I getting stronger? If you are getting stronger, Mads, if you're getting stronger, you don't usually get stronger while you're losing muscle. The goal for every woman over 30, 35 should be to maintain at minimum the muscle that she's got, because post-menopause, it's going to start to come off. And then you're going to have a really, 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 really hard time building it back. So the goal should be to focus on those resistance training sessions. get stronger. Sure, Mads, losing weight, great. But if you just get stronger over time, your metabolism will increase. And as long as you're eating normally, the weight will start to come off because your metabolism is just becoming a roaring engine, and that's what you want. Hopefully that answers the question, my friend. Elliptical is my jam, and that's the one I was looking for. Dino, I was forgetting that before, brother. Okay, guys. Well, hopefully that was helpful. I think I've exhausted all questions for today, this morning. If you are a client of ours and you have any other questions, just bang it through. If it's something one of the support coaches can't answer immediately, they'll pass it back to myself or one of the guys. And other than that, I hope you're having a beautiful start to the week. For those of you that have been like hammering me to do a merch run, yes, we will be going live on a merch order this week. I spent the whole weekend doing stock take and trying to get our store updated with products. And so if you're interested in grabbing some merch, we'll let you know when it's ready to rock and roll. Other than that, guys, we'll see you on the flip side. Have a beautiful morning, evening, or afternoon. Peace.